So first things first, we do gotta get this out of the way. I'm gonna have to say this in every video I make for like the next week or 2 weeks. I'm losing my voice. It happens like 2 to 3 times a year. I can't help it. The audio quality's gonna suck. We're just gonna have to live with that, but I'm not gonna wait to talk about shows like Fruits Basket because it's Fruits Basket and it's goddamn amazing. This week's episode was a Yuki, very Yuki focused episode, and every time we learn more about Yuki's past, we just get little glimpses. Either someone says something, references something, or the anime will actually show us a flashback. It always is heartbreaking, but it also further shows not only how far the current Yuki has come from obviously where he started off, but also how much further he still has left to go after experiencing such emotional and physical torment, literally being treated as a tool and kind of sold off. And something that I have to say I really appreciate about this episode was how they portrayed Ayame in comparison to a lot of what we've seen. Like, they've had some great content with this whole brother dynamic. I'm not going to say otherwise. But something that I thought they really did exceptionally well was the fact that they actually went the extra mile to put him in a very negative spotlight, which is something, honestly, the show does remarkably well. Rather than saying this is a great character and this is a bad character, it's people. People with a lot of flaws, and some characters obviously have a lot more flaws than others, which makes it hard to see a positive in them, but it doesn't feel to me like a character in Fruits Basket is ever wrote to be, hey, you should hate this character, you should love this character. They're people. They all have their issues, some more than others, and it'll take a lot to maybe overcome some of those issues to be forgiven. But everyone can change. People can change, and a lot of things that have happened to these characters aren't to the point that you have to say, okay, 100% they can never be forgiven. And even if you can't forgive them, you don't have to hold on to that hate. And that's something that I kind of have a firm belief with, just not only just with my own life, but just when I watch shows. I really don't like hating characters. I think it's a really bad feeling, and I think it's kind of the cause of most issues in the world. You don't have to be ignorant and say we have to like everyone and be nice to everyone, but I think the idea of hate is something that I just actively try to avoid. And to me, with how characters are written in Fruits Basket, even the worst parents in this show, it doesn't feel to me like that's what it's supposed to say. You're supposed to hate these characters. No, you're supposed to just say, that's horrible, that's scummy, but let's take said character and push them in a great direction and forget about the past. Overcome the past, but then move on from the past. And that's what I really got with Ayame in this episode, that yeah, he was a brother who was just completely ignorant and just ignored emotions. If his little brother was in trouble, he shrugged him off and didn't even acknowledge it. Not because he loved him or hated him, just he was neutral on him, and that's why he's so different in present day. That he is this overbearing, overloving, doing everything he can to compensate and try to make up for his own shortcomings in the past. But that's the complete opposite of what an emotionally broken kid would want. You would want something a little more tame and build your way up to it, but it's nice how these two brothers are actually really trying and putting their feet forward to say, hey, we need to try to be better for the both of us. And it's really nice to see what they did, because a character like Yuki is not going to just do that overnight and say, okay, you know what, you kind of treated me bad in the past, you ignored me when I was crying out for help, but you're real nice, you put some nice lovey-dovey words on my shirt, I'm gonna love you right now. No, that's not how it's gonna work, nor how it should work if we're supposed to be watching realistic characters, which we are. A character like Ayame feels totally bad for what he did in the past, and he's gonna try what he can to just be as forward as possible because he was so distant in the past. But it's gonna take him a while to kind of like, for the two to feel like, okay, we reached this sweet spot where we can both feel comfortable. But the fact that they both are trying, the fact that Yuki said, I wanted to see your shop, that says everything to me of how much not only characters like Toru have helped mend his heart, but the fact that his past isn't what defining him anymore. The fact that he's trying to make his own future, figure out what he wants his career to be. The fact that he's willing to invite the parents to basically show this. He just wants to make damn sure he has his future planned so they can't put any thoughts in his head, because damn that, he's not going back to that lifestyle ever again. Like, this episode was actually surprisingly comfy for a good amount. I mean, we have maid Toru, we have the maid that works in the brothers' little shop there, we have a lot of just comfy scenes in the very beginning, but then you get like 10 minutes of content that just smacks you with the feels, and it's amazing for that. That's something that I really like about the Fruits Basket formula, is a lot of shows in like this style, what they usually do is they have their dramatic and then they have their kind of like goofy or just kind of cutesy slice of life, but rarely do they mix the two in a single episode because it can feel easily distracting. But the thing is if you're a good author, you can write it and blend it in such a way that it doesn't feel jarring in the slightest, which is exactly what Fruits Basket does. You start the episode off with the amount of just insanity that you would expect with the brother dynamic. Sure, there's a nightmare that Yuki wakes up from, but that's just like a little small glimpse. That's what most shows would do. A little small glimpse and then an entire episode of fun. Maybe next week we'd get into some pretty serious and sad. And don't get me wrong, there are episodes of Fruits Basket that are just completely dramatic and serious, but a lot of them are like this, where it's like, okay, they're being super brotherly love here. He's just getting side eyes left and right, like, what are you saying? What is with this flirtatious imagery that I'm seeing? And then it gets pure dramatic. And it doesn't feel jarring, not because like they did necessarily anything all that different to what most series try to do. Serious, dramatic, and then a little comfy and fun, but why does it feel jarring usually? The answer to me is because the characters aren't written from the very beginning to be able to support that formula. If you look at a character like Yuki, he's a character who has suffered so much, as have many characters, don't get me wrong. But the fact that he's written in such a way that in his day-to-day life he very much blends in so naturally and can have cute and comfy scenes despite being so tormented on the inside. It naturally lets him blend from complete ridiculous anime to then having reflection on the past and wanting to run away from the nightmares. And all the characters are pretty much wrote that way, and even the characters who maybe aren't necessarily wrote in that way that they can easily blend between the two, there's usually a character supporting them in any scene, so if another funny scene pops up slightly after a dramatic, it doesn't feel like it's an off-putting moment, but rather it's like, this is Fruits Basket, they've designed the cast in such a well-fleshed-out way that we're not going to roll our eyes, we're going to say that's actually a natural transition and more authors should take note. I'm really liking what this season of Fruits Basket is doing because it definitely feels to me like, yeah, everything that we loved about season 1, it's still here, but obviously we're going to get deeper into the story, deeper into the characters' motivations and their past, and that's going to flesh them out tenfold, and then in return, their future is going to be all the more optimistic, if not completely frightening because you don't know what certain people like Akito will do to the clan and things like that. There's a lot of uncertainty, but that uncertainty is what keeps it interesting in the long run. It's very easy for a show like this to only need 1, maybe 2 seasons of like 30 to 40 episodes at best, but you can tell Fruits Basket is one of those shows that you're glad it's getting a lot of episodes and a full adaptation because there is a lot of characters, and it doesn't feel like they're just adding characters in just to fill a scene, but rather you're going to go back to them at some point in time, and whether that's 10 episodes from now, 2 episodes from now, the very next episode, doesn't matter. Every character is becoming something. I remember when we first got introduced to Ayame, like, that's a character who is just so anime that is usually, that's all it is, the personality. Super lovey-dovey brother with some flirtatious nature with his best friend. That's pretty much what it would be. Look at an episode like this and look at how they showed how flawed he was in the past, which then goes to show why he's like how he is currently in the present, and the fact that he can have moments with his helper and basically just feel weak and at peace. It's really nice. And don't get me wrong, this did have some cute moments. Maid Toru and just how happy she was, a little like, oh, you look really cute. That was really adorable. I mean, that's what it is, but this episode slapped because of the emotional pain and the fact that Yuki had one of his biggest steps forward, and the fact that even though they still don't get each other, they're trying. And the trying is what matters because it shows that what happened in the past isn't what has to define them, and they can push forward to a better tomorrow. One of my absolute favorite parts of this episode is it actually wasn't all that visually impressive in comparison to some of Fruits Basket's best moments. But it was a very simple episode by design, even at a like story level, where it literally was bad things happened in the past, and now the two brothers are trying, on both sides, trying to reconnect and see, is there any common ground and can we actually support one another? That's what the episode was. So not having like a lot of flash, but really the most interesting visual element to this episode was honestly the amount of times you could look at Yuki and be like, this boy is so dumbfounded. Not only by like, he's like, why are you wearing a wedding dress? He's like, oh, you know, I was getting for a client. He's like, okay, and a man's body will do. He's like, well, a man's buying it. No judgment here. And he's like, what kind of world am I getting into? And I love that because it doesn't feel like anything is just like super anime or gimmicky, but rather, you know, everyone has their own beliefs, their own desires, and their own way of life. And it's interesting to see a character like Yuki get brought into this world of such ridiculous clothing and dress-up materials where if a cute girl walks in, she's going to get dressed up as a maid because that's just what one of his helpers really likes to do. It's really interesting to me that this episode was actually visually striking, not because of necessarily flash or they did any like dramatic or really interesting shot, but rather it was just great to see Yuki or some of the other characters just respond to the absurdity and question like, what did we get ourselves into? On one hand, you kind of want to walk away, but on the other, you want to push forward. And that's what makes an episode like this so great, and of course the voice actors continuing to hit it out of the park, and you gotta love the brothers and just how they responded with that emotional range. definitely brought a lot of emotions in me, I have to say. Fruits Basket is incredible, it really is, and I'm hoping that because this has been in production from basically last season, it's a full adaptation, I'm really hoping that, this can survive the COVID-19, because goddamn, not many series are. But at the very least, we should probably get a few more episodes if it does have to grind to a halt for the time being, but fingers crossed, because I love this show. It's one of my favorites, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go from here. But as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on Fruits Basket Season 2 down in the comment section below. Favorite moment and where you think it's going to go next week. If you don't know the source material, do let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, share your support, remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.